Hey everybody, welcome back to part 2 of the making of Beacon from the single player of Titanfall 2. If you haven't seen episode 1 yet, you shouldn't be here and you should probably go back and watch episode 1. But if you have, welcome back. I am Jay Frechette. I am the community manager here at Respawn.
I'm Chad Grenier, senior designer and scripter of the level.
I am Manny Hagopian. I am one of the writers.
Jason McCord. I'm a lead designer and the geo layout guy for the level.
And I'm Austin Arnett, senior environment artist.
So you did environment art.
Yeah, I didn't have as much cool stuff as you did. You had like a whole long title explanation thing. I made ground.
You look pretty.
So we've just gotten the ARC tool so we can power the beacon. So BT's connecting the power hose.
Yep.
And
It couldn't have been done without that power hose. Good job, BT.
I was like, hey, pilot, I like you. Good job.
so they tell you to go into the dangerous radiation room here.
Mm-hmm.
This was like sort of a test map to begin with. I had a lot of these batteries that you sort of shoot and activate in a test map, and they're kind of stacked. So I think Jason actually came up with the idea of putting a whole bunch of them together in one room.
Well, one of our lead artist actually was like, you know, it's kind of fun to just hold the button down and just paint a wall of these things. So I went and built like a bunch of different rooms with all these different variations on layouts of these things, and ended up on this round one so that you could kind of wall run and shoot at the same time.
So scary.
And then they tell you, you better hurry up and get out of that room. And they sort of don't quickly open the door for you to get out.
I want you to suffer a little bit
The
longer.
place is broken. It's got a lot of work. This is such a beautiful view.
So this being the first level that we made, we hadn't locked the story down. And so all of this dialogue and everything that happens in this room and throughout the level was rewritten probably 5 times at least.
Enough that I think you've had enough of it. You're like, we're done. This is it. I don't care.
Manny, can you just tell me the final
I
story?
don't care if BT's name is Jeff. This is it.
At least they kept the dish. I didn't really have to change much on that. So that was good.
There is a lot of cool dialogue in this room, in the earlier parts of the level too. That it's just like if you hang out, there's a lot of just hearing these grunts talk and stuff like that. I don't know if people get a chance to listen to that, but it's in there. We wrote it.
Very disgruntled.
Exactly.
Yeah, I remember the version that we had in the very first version was like, hey, what if there's a group of people named Mike and Ike in this room,
I think.
and they're holed up in the...
Yeah, I think. Are they still Mike and Ike?
No.
Manny cut it.
I think we actually called them McCord and Grenier. Actually,
There's
named it for
definitely
us.
McCord Grenier in that room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Captain Cole's in
It
there.
used to be Mike and Ike.
Cole's found throughout the game too. He's the one who hands you the gun in the very beginning of the entire game when you get out of the sim pod.
Manny wrote a pretty cool little homage to Titanfall 1 here.
Yeah, basically, like, we were testing out the IDs in this level, the interactive dialogue in this level, and we were seeing what we could do. And that was one of them of like, oh, what if we walk by this charred Titan and BT recognizes him as someone that he may have known previously, or, you know, we weren't sure. So we tested that out, and it stayed in.
So, yeah, reference to Fracture from Titanfall 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, the IDs were prototyped in this level, like
Yeah.
you said, so there's going to be one right here coming up. This was sort of a way that we were trying to build a bond between the player and BT, and so we thought that if you could communicate with him, that would help.
Yeah, I was a hater for that. I was like, no, I don't want to. It never feels good when the player character talks in a first-person shooter, and then as soon as we tried it, I was like, okay.
Yeah, I felt the same way. Like when I first heard it as an idea, I was like, "That sounds weird." And then when we put it in this level, we think we did like these lines here when he throws you over the gap, the one previously, and some down under the beacon. Like people just loved it. It just worked so well.
Yeah.
It's got a nice amount of charm to it. Makes it
This throw is internally, we called it Fastball Special. And one of our other designers, Sean, he prototyped it. And his version, actually, you could have BT kind of throw you anywhere. You actually aimed.
Oh, you use BT you guided BT?
Well, he'd pick you up, and then you can aim, and he would throw you. Like, you'd actually hit a button to initiate the throw.
You'd see your
But-
trajectory and where you're going to land.
Yeah, I mean, we had problems with that. We ended up using it in this way to prevent the player from backtracking and sort of getting access to a new area as a scripted sequence instead of the original dynamic version. That was pretty cool.
It's completely level breaking.
It's a great moment in the game, though. It's like a nice surprise.
Yeah.
It's something you don't necessarily expect to happen. It was definitely one of the moments, I think, like one of the first trailers that kind of stood out as the idea of your Titan throwing you across.
Oh, it was the tag at the end, right?
I think
That
so,
is
yeah,
one of
yeah,
the trailers
yeah.
Where,
Yeah, we, especially early on, we wanted to try and make as many things gameplay as possible and just try and stay away from scripted sequences, or at least being too heavy-handed on scripted sequences. And we actually went from gameplay to a scripted throw for that one, and it turned out to be the right call for that one.
So this section here went through a lot of iteration. The AI were still being worked on when this section was scripted, so the AI was constantly changing. New enemy types were coming online, so this area got redone over and over again.
Yeah, a lot of different placements for the doors and where to place them, and the little icons that you can click, and it would open the doors to reveal little special wall run paths and stuff.
At one point, we had a friendly pilot with you for this section.
Ninjas.
Yeah, they ended up making their way into the Arc level instead as the 5-0
6-4.
or 6-4.
5-hour police.
Right.
I was just going to say, I was like,
Yeah,
oh man.
6-4.
5-0 is trying to keep you down.
The inspiration for these towers came from. Have you guys seen those old World War II anti-aircraft defense sea forts?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah,
The little
bunkers.
boxes out with stilts out off the coast. I think they're off the coast of Great Britain. I'm not sure, but yeah, the idea was like, you're a wall running pilot. You want to be like, to me that always means wall running high above something dangerous. You know, like flying through the air. So that was sort of the initial block out was these things, and wall running on cylinders is sort
Fun.
of more freeing than
Yeah,
big
yeah.
squares. So that was kind of where it started, and then Austin took it and ran with it.
Yeah, it was tough to try and match it to kind of, it's taking that reference and trying to change it to make it feel like it was a little bit more of a sci-fi environment from, they were basically just concrete bunkers that all the references they were graffitied on, and, all kinds of crazy angles that really wouldn't work for gameplay, so we had to really kind of go back and forth to really get it to work well with you being able to wall run around it, wall run over windows.
What kind of other inspirations are you looking at from an art perspective with that sort of bunker as a base? Are you looking at like individual panels, textures?
We would get some kind of concept stuff done from some of the concept guys as a reference, along with like just looking at other just concept art online. Like we'll just be like, okay, I kind of like how this looks, so I'm gonna just maybe do a play on this, mix it with some of the concept that we have, or take some of the language of the concept and kind of try and make it fit more like that. Because some of them can be a little bit more loose concept-wise. It gives us a little more freedom to actually do our own spin on something instead of being exactly the concept.
These buildings, I think, were one of the first arted things we had in the game.
Yeah.
I remember we had a whole company meeting, and it was kind of it was a show and tell. Everybody shows on a big screen in front of the whole company what they've been working on. And Austin showed one of these round buildings, and everybody was like blown away.
I think Mike did the first one for him, but yeah, I went and took those and made them so we can,
Make a
use
lot
them.
of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we actually had we kind of had to make a design call here for the first time in the game where you can skip a lot of this fight if you're good. I mean, we had to try to make it a little difficult, but we sort of decided that that's what's cool about being a pilot is you're able to wall run and cloak and get behind people really easily, and
kind of do whatever you want.
Yeah, that's kind of the power fantasy. So
Unless you get a super specter near you, he'll
Well,
chase you down to the ends of the earth.
we didn't want to make it easy. So yeah, we have the Reapers that'll chase you down, and
Was it always a dream to be able to change the stalkers and let them have them be activated for yourself?
I think so.
Because this is the
pretty
first
early
level
on.
you do
we
that,
were also
right?
looking for more uses for the arc tool.
Mm.
So we were just kind of brainstorming ideas of how can we use the arc tool a little bit more. These cranes went through a lot of crazy things.
There used to be 3 or something, wasn't there?
Well,
How many are there
the
now?
cranes were done in an action block also, sort of not before this level was even really being built. The cranes existed, and we had all kinds of funny iterations of it. At one point, it was a magnetic crane like you'd see at a
Junkyard.
junkyard.
Yeah.
And the puzzle was actually to get BT across the platform, and so you would activate the magnet over his head, and he would get sucked
I don't
up,
remember
and you'd
that.
carry him in, and then deactivate the magnet on the other side.
Sings show tunes like
I was gonna say I would
Bender
love
from
for that to be
Futurama.
there just for the stuff Manny would have written as BT's dialogue for him going through that.
Stop it! Stop it! Stop it!
You would just be complaining about a headache the rest of the level.
This is embarrassing.
Yeah, this was another first for the game too, where it was a puzzle, and it was just hard enough to where a lot of our testing was really painful.
There was some really bad things
very,
happening.
very painful, and so it went through a lot of versions. And I mean, you can still, if you're really good and can get a lot of speed, you can skip this whole thing. You can just wall run and fly past
We
it.
have like a kind of a painful sort of policy. It's sort of an unwritten policy that when somebody comes in to test the game and they get to a hard or a stuck spot, we force that person to just sit there and watch them until they get it. We don't go in there and be like, oh, let's skip you past this part. So as a designer, if you make something that's really difficult, you have to painfully sit there, sometimes for an hour.
Or even if they didn't even come in to play the game. If they just came in to visit their family, and it's like, here, sit down and play this thing. They'll be like, oh, okay.
And then you usually
Miss their
fix
flight.
it so that you don't have to sit there for an hour next time.
Yeah, it's a little bit about eating your dog food. It's a little bit about figuring out how the person eventually, like what they try. Once they get stuck, are they trying some crazy stuff? And is that crazy thing they're trying, does that seem like actually the way that it should happen? But it can be pretty painful.
Yeah, I feel like that's got to be one of the most difficult things to anticipate from a player perspective is putting puzzles in the game.
Yeah,
Because you know the
especially for a
solution
shooter.
right away. So it's like, do you reverse engineer it in a way that's sort of fun and interesting?
Honestly, I think that one came from having Chad made the crane module script toy, and we sort of just put it in different scenarios and just try different stuff until we sort of it's just like having Legos and just building them together till you made something that was like, hey, that's kind of cool.
Nice.
I remember there being a bit of there's a benefit to having BT, but a bit of a crush that we ended up using him to explain things along the way, and it became too much. You're hearing BT suddenly telling you how to maneuver those cranes from so far away, and somehow BT's supposed to know exactly what to do. So I remember there at one point being so many nags, and we just ended up cutting them all. And
There was a funny line that you had in there at one point
let's
about
try to
if
get it
you don't make it as a pilot, you could be a construction worker. We had to take that one out.
a lot of ones we took out. I cried myself to sleep.
BT's always the king of good positive reinforcement.
I do like that. Like a lot of the you guys design very grounded. This is as crazy as it may seem. It's still just a construction site. So
Right.
it's still we're able to explain what's going on here in a grounded sense. It's not too ridiculous that Just makes it easier, so I'm saying thank you.
Hey, no problem.
Which is part of the difficult thing too, is trying to get that balance of at least making it feel like it's someone in the future, along with still having some stuff that's
Right,
iconic
right.
or memorable, to where you're like, oh, I've seen stuff that's similar to this.
I mean, honestly, yeah, I would give most of the credit to the art team on that, because
Gotta do it.
when we gave them when design gave them this map, it was like, I think it's probably a construction site, but also it's just a big like space with some blocks in it that we think is fun to fight in. So
Make it look good,
please
please.
make it
Yeah.
look like something cool.
When I originally started this, the round buildings and the section before, I made a bunch of construction areas thinking that, okay, some of these could be under construction and give variation, but then I took that whole style and made it for the second half, where everything was under construction, and there was like a satellite dish that was under construction, and I just kind of kept going with that kind of...
Yeah, I think it worked.
Yeah, I really like the contrast of sort of a place that, from it seems as sci-fi as it is, like you can understand like the function of it, but it's in this very fantastical setting. Between the poison gas, it's way up high in the air. It reminds me of something almost like BioShock, of like a city being underwater.
Right, yeah.
Which I just think is really awesome.
Yeah, so this weapon was funny when I was playing this. A couple people were watching me, and even a bunch of the developers that didn't know this weapon was here. I think it's the only Cold War in the single player game.
There was another special one in the sewers too. That's kind of cool. Like, you guys hiding all the special secret stuff around is still fun to see people finding more and more things, even after the game's been out for a while.
Totally.
Here it is.
So that's the end of part 2. Thank you guys for your awesome commentary. Make sure to watch part 3 in the link below.